para manggagis todos pago gini nataluani. Manggagit gini para tatutun untan iginagaw eksekutibo na ramas para operasyon gobernamento ngwahan gini gimamayla na fiscal year 2015. Taymana ni Audi fune ni nanu man maspipyagi tanolta ang problema tal lokiza tatutun ni EDCI man maspipya mayors, ladies and gentlemen, first responders, chairman of the committee that has oversight of the mayors. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This hearing is being called on the FY 2015 Executive Branch Budget Request for the upcoming operations of the government of Guam and its branches in the upcoming fiscal year. As we always say that we will start with those that are at the front lines, and I think it was a very conscious decision on us to begin with the mayors in this budget cycle and this budget hearing. So at this time, I'd like to thank my colleague here, Senator Tina Rose Muñoz-Barnes, who has oversight over the mayors, for joining us this afternoon. And we invite the Mayor's Council and their representatives and the various mayors to please come forward to make your presentation of the FY 2015 budget request. We'll go ahead and hear from the mayors themselves, and then perhaps maybe from the executive director who may wish to make then the presentation. Before we begin, I'd also like to recognize that Senator Frank Uggan Jr. has joined the committee in this hearing this afternoon. Thank you very much, and we'll turn it over to the mayors.
Thank you, committee members, senators. I thank the mayors for being here, and I see no objection of what do you call it? The budget that the proposal that we have submitted, right? And I have nothing to say right now until we go through the budget.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. McDonald. Mayor McDonald. Mr. Sablon.
Buenas and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Senator Ben Pangelinan, of course our Oversight Chair, Senator Tina Muñoz-Barnes, and Senator Frank Uggan. Thank you for allowing us to, as in your own words, be one of the first to be heard as far as our budget is concerned. I hope that would bode well into when we split up the pie, that the Mayor's Council of Guam will be able to get what it is asking for as far as the budget is concerned. You know, it is very difficult, and you're correct. Our mayors and vice mayors in the village are always the first responders, and although we are always asked to do things above and beyond what we can really do, we try in so many ways to be able to provide the services, knowing full well that in many cases we don't have the funds to do it. And we try, mayors get together and try to figure out how they can help one another, help each other, help their neighbors in trying to meet the demands and the requests of our constituents. And one of the biggest things that's just come up over the years is that we've really looked at the services that we provide. And in doing so, when you look at the villages that are large in terms of population and in terms of land area, like Deredo and Jigo, Tamuning, Manila, Jonia, and you look at the others that are much smaller in terms of population and land area, like Yamatic and Maritzo, and you consider that they almost have they have actually the same number of employees as far as maintenance is concerned. You got to thank those mayors with the big villages because they are very creative in trying to be able to serve such a big population um, with other demands that come in. I mean, I have phone calls to my office because the work in some of these villages are backlogged. The constituents are not getting it, and it's not because that the mayors don't want to do it. It's just that their people are so tied up in doing other things that they're not able to get to service other constituents as quickly as they would probably in the village of PD or in the village of Asan Mahina or in Yamatic, where it's much smaller and they have less people to attend to. So you'll see in our budget request that we have actually asked for 2 additional personnel, maintenance personnel, for these big villages, simply because they need the help. The other increase that you see in our personnel is simply because of the Hay study pay increases that are going to be covered from October 1st in the new fiscal year. We've also again asked for a slight increase in our public safety funds, in our street maintenance funds, and in our village beautification funds. As you can probably see, we've asked, as we have asked in the previous budget cycles, $100,000 more than what we used to get. This money is divided up amongst all the villages based on either equal allotment or based on the, as you put in the legislation, the latest road inventory, pavement inventory from the Department of Public Works. We are very well aware that the latest one from Public Works is actually 2007, and we have been asking them for a new inventory. There was some controversy last year because we did receive a new listing from the Department of Public Works, but the mayors felt that since it was not certified, it was not verified, it was not published officially, that they did not want to use it as the official road pavement inventory for the entire island. So thus they went back to status quo, to whatever the old one was, and split up the allotments that way. The grass cutting maintenance fund is still working out well. I know that my dear mayor from PD thinks that the amount is too small, especially for his village. But other villages, other mayors have been able to use the grass cutting in a way where they are able to combine their funds together, their schools together, to purchase actually grass cutting, lawnmowers, bigger machines, or they do the work themselves and just pay the fuel out of the grass cutting. So it's been working out very well. I don't think you're going to hear too much complaints from many of the schools or the principals of schools not being cut, because they are being attended to. And the fact that you have given us the appropriation directly to the Mayor's Council of Guam has been a big help, because we've been able to turn around invoices in a very timely manner to pay the vendors that are actually doing the work for the schools, or to the villages, the MPCs that are actually spending the money for either equipment or for fuel or other maintenance costs. The other budget items that you see there are the ones that we've always had every year, which is the President's Contingency Fund, the Association of Marin Island Mayors funding that we give for their association, the power, the utility, although we know that you've combined that into a common funding in previous years, probably be the same thing. The rental for our office spaces, it's also the same. We have the village of PD and the village of Inaran, and of course our own MCOG office. We've had to increase the office space rental for the MCOG office because of our absorption of the senior center operations. We had to have some personnel that we picked up to run the program, and we simply did not fit comfortably in the office space that we had. And so we purchased another unit, rented another unit. Although it's coming out of the federal funding, we did ask for additional funds here to be able to allow us to put it under to the general fund, because we'd rather use the federal funding to be able to apply that to some of the programs we do for the senior citizens. Uh, So all in all, the budget that we put forth to you, we do have some capital outlay funds that we've asked, and these are simply from the various mayors that have asked that we include it just in case you'll be able to hear their cry. Many of them, are still crying out for vehicles. The village of Asamina, just as yesterday, came asking me whether there's some way I can find her a pickup truck because none of her vehicles are working. And so we put in the capital outlay funds. I know that some of this have been identified for heavy equipment, but there's been so much talk already about heavy equipment and different sources of funding that are being, looked at. The 2.5 million that was appropriated by this body through Senator Rodriguez's bill, the 2.5 million that the governor says he was giving us from the recycling fund, and the 2.5 million from Senator Rory Respicu's bill. So, as far as heavy equipment is concerned, we're probably going to be getting some heavy equipment. When and where we know that even if we procured it today, as Public Works is trying to do, is going to take another 8 to 10 months before we even realize the equipment to be here on island. And so if you take into account the capital outlay that we've asked there for 1.5 million, and you look that it's mostly for actually heavy equipment, and consider that we do have already active funding sources that are being looked at or being acted upon, then that probably is not necessary. But all in all, like I said, we've been trying to be very frugal, been trying to live within our means. Whenever we have carryovers from the previous fiscal year, the mayors put it again to good use. I've mentioned this before, that many mayors, because they look to the future and try to be able to obtain something larger than what they can obtain currently because of budget constraints, they actually save their money, hoping that you would allow them to carry over and they'll be able to use those funds in the next fiscal year. So we've asked that those administrative provisions be continued, where we are allowed to use our carryover funds and are allowed to pay our prior obligations in the new fiscal year. Other than that, other than asking for those new positions for the bigger villages and asking for the increases in those different categories that we have, we've been very, very thankful for the support that all of you have given us. I know Senator Tina always calls us every month to ask us what can we do or what do we need. And I know that different villages, it's not that this budget is complete and total in what we need. I know different villages have different needs that are not indicated in this budget. We have gyms that are still in disrepair, but we've been very, very lucky and fortunate. This past year, we've had $500,000 in Compact Impact Aid money that was given to us through the work of Senator Tina and Governor Calvo. And we've already used up about $475,000 of that $500,000 in the renovation of many of our village sports facilities. We have another $500,000 that is currently being worked on. It's for phase 2 of working in the different villages to continue the work in our renovation of sports facilities and recreational facilities and community centers and youth centers. On top of that, we do have $700,000 again from Compact Impact funds that, although has already been indicated to us that they would be giving to us, that's still being worked upon. But having said all that, we know that you fully understand that we have assumed a lot of other mandates over these years, and one of them that we assume that is now costing us funds that we do not have is actually the senior center operations. Not that we don't have the money for the personnel, not that we don't have the money to provide them the programs that they need, but the facilities that are being used for our senior citizens Many of them are going into disrepair. Many of them are over 10 years old. The village of Jonia, in fact, right now, is being housed in Rahan for their senior center operations simply because their air conditioning has just completely shut down. It's not working. While we don't have the funds in our account right now, we have been given some money by the Department of Senior Citizens, our Division of Senior Citizens from Public Health, to be able to address some of these issues. The problem is it takes a while before these grants are worked into our budget because it goes through BBMR, it goes to the AG's office, it goes back to Public Health, it goes through all kinds of paperwork before we really realize the actual funds. So we may have gotten the 3 quotes and the necessary documents together to purchase the air conditioning. For Jonia, we are not able to do so simply because the funds are still not in our account, nor do we have it in our own MCOG operations to pay for it, because 2 months ago we had to pull out around $13,000 just to be able to fund a new air conditioning system for the Tamuning Senior Center. So it's basically all the villages are beginning to break down as far as their air conditioning is concerned. As far as the mandates from the Older Americans Act, where we have to make sure that their doors operate for handicap accessible, where we have to make sure there's always the right water pressure, we make sure that the fire alarms are working. All of these are beginning to cost us money. And in actuality, when we assumed the operations from DSC, the bulk of the money that they gave was simply just for personnel and some supplies, but not for maintenance or replacing any of these big bulk items that now are in need of replacement. We continue to work with them on a daily basis. I think when Mayor Alman comes up here to speak, he will probably give you a proposal on how best to probably handle how we get our money from DSC, because right now we're just getting it so much whenever they want to give us it. And what they say is whenever they obtain the grant or parts of the grant, then they'll give us parts of that money, but they don't give us the whole total amount in the beginning of the fiscal year.
But wasn't that all known, Angel, when you took over the operations?
Excuse me, sir?
I mean, didn't you know all of that when you took over operations?
Well, we knew all of that, but our centers that were then and there weren't giving us these problems where things were breaking down. So we didn't know how long more. We figured we could still get by and offer these services. But right now, the fact is, we think that only one would break down, but 2 or 3 now in a row have come down with broken air conditioning. So
but isn't that the responsibility of the Division of Senior Citizens?
You would think so. You would think so, Senator. And we've tried to work with them to make sure that they give us more funds to be able to address these issues. And aside from that, we have the 12 centers, but we have other mayors that are requesting to open centers. And my only answer to them is that unless we get additional funding from DSC, we are not able to open new centers, because where are we going to get the funds to do that?
Was that request sent to the Department of Public Health, because that's still under their
yes, I've asked the mayors to work directly with the Division of Senior Citizens to be able to see whether or not they can ask for additional grants to be able to do this. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Sablan. Just to preface, I guess, the specific questions we have. As you know, the executive branch budget that was submitted by the governor proposed a lump sum budget in the amount of $288,918,184 from the general fund and $50,922,749 from various special funds to fund the following agency: the Guam Department of Education, Commission on Education Certification, and University of Guam, Community College, Legislature, Office of Finance and Budget, Unified Judiciary, Public Defender Service Corporation, the Mayor's Council of Guam, the Office of Public Accountability, and the Office of the Attorney General and the Guam Visitors Bureau. The Office of Finance Budget looked at this budget proposal that the governor had set aside for all of these entities. And based upon the budget for 2014, the prorated amount that was reserved for the Mayor's Council based on last year is $8,206,955. Now, your request is for $12,369,597, which is a difference of almost $4 million between your request and what the governor has set aside for your budget. So it's a huge challenge for us to try to find that additional $4 million because we still have to fund DOE, GCC, UOG, and so forth. So the governor took the bulk of the money, fully funded the agencies under his purview, and then reserved amount and said, you divide it. And when we divided it up, it ended up that the Mayor's Council share of that pot the governor left for all the other departments and agencies and branches of the government of Guam only allocated $8 million for the Mayor's Council. So just to be upfront and let you know that your request for $12 million and the allocation of 8 based upon the governor's submittal of the budget is something that this legislature is going to have to look at and struggle with regards to providing you the resources that you need. We saw an increase. I'm going to leave that statement in, and then, of course, would defer to some of the questions that the chair oversight over the Mayor's Council of Guam may have, and then we'll reserve questions for the other members of the Senate, of the legislature that are here. And I'd like to thank Senator Tommy Morrison for joining us. Senator Munya Barnes.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity. Mr. President, Mayor McDonald, to the Vice President, Mayor Hoffman, thank you. Mayor Gumatauta, Mayor Gogui, Mayor Cruz, and Mayor Matanani, thank you all for being here. To Executive Director Sablan, Sijuas Masi for being here. One of the concerns I had, and I think you probably answered it earlier, was the slot allotted, the extra slot that I guess you extended for the office. I know that there was an increase amount for that, but I was looking at this, excuse me, the square footage, and for 2014, it was looking at 3,773 square feet. But for 2015, you're looking at 2,754, and then there's an increase, I think, of over $6,000. So I just wanted to make sure, is that correct? And as far as the square footage, because you're paying, and is that inclusive of utilities in that one for the rent?
Our main office is inclusive of utilities.
Of utilities.
Yeah, it's just that the rental for fiscal year has gone up, as
Right.
is in our contract.
I
yes.
understand that, but it looked like your square footage went down when you just were saying that you had to ask for another bay, right?
Yeah, maybe
So-
it's a typo, but we'll
Yeah, can
correct
you
it. But I
just
know
make sure?
that the monthly rental has increased.
Okay, and then one of the other concerns, or the other issues was the operation request at $25,000 per district, and you just noted that allocation was based on a formula that we have been working for many years. And I just food for thought, that new plan that DPW was going to propose to you, was that, and I know you guys went back, but did that show any differences in as far as the village mileage, the increase on any of the major?
Yes.
Was it very major that it made an impact, that there was a lot of, I guess, disgruntled concerns within the mayors?
Well, what happened was the larger villages would have lost a chunk of the money to the smaller villages if we followed the latest coming out of, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Chalampago order would have been the village to have suffered the most as far as reducing their budget out of that road pavement allocation.
So right now, you were told by DPW that would remain.
They do have a listing. It's just that it's not for the, according to the letter I got from Director Crowd Dominguez, he has not verified that listing to issue it out officially.
Okay. Okay, I guess that's...
But, you know, it's 2014, and we're working with something that's quite antique already as far as mileage is concerned. And we are aware, everybody's aware, that there have been new roads open in many of the villages.
Well, I understand that I was informed that the mayors were trying to come up when we were talking about the demarcations, that all of you guys were going to revisit this and then come up with a plan and then come back to this body so that we can move forward on that to make it easier for the mayors and fair.
Unfortunately, the people that were working on it in land management have retired, and no one has carried on that mandate to be able to work with us to find those demarcations and officially, at least for my part, for where I live, officially tell me whether I live in Jigo or Dededo.
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and deal with that on another matter, but one of the other other issues was on the contractual services. In the narrative request from you folks, there was a request for, in the narrative request, it was 70,000, but on the budget submission, it was up to 85,000, and I just want to know, I hope are you looking for the higher number, and what was that breakdown for the allocation? Because on the narrative, you have 70,000, and the submission is at 85. And if I'm not mistaken, something that was probably needed was that the mayor's council would really need to look into what the public auditor's request was for the accounting services and how that was going to be implemented because of the non-appropriated funds that you need to deal with, the liberation festivities, the school grass cutting program, and the animal control program.
That's correct.
Are those still all?
Yes, that's correct. We're asking for 85,000 in the contractual, 35,000 for the maintenance of copiers and the printers and whatnot, and then the 50,000 for the addition of that.
And that's what the request is, right? We will delete the mayor's inauguration ceremony there. The other one is the $100,000 increase for all the different programs on the SPE, the street and maintenance and beautification, the IWVPP. Those are all the acronyms for the
Island White Public Safety Program.
Yeah, and the public safety.
Village beautification.
You have a detailed breakdown of the addition for the additional 100,000, or is it just to enhance?
We have not done any detail. We're just thinking that we've gotten the same amount for the past 3 fiscal years, exactly the same figure, and we've also asked for the same increase every year. But we have always gone back to status quo. And simply it's just because we figured that there's been an increase for the mayors, an increase in fuel costs, increase in other items, so that we did not itemize it down to come up with $100,000. We just threw that figure out as something that we would like it to increase by.
Okay.
And even with that 100,000, every village would benefit from it because it's divided amongst all the villages.
We're using the formula.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chair, that's it right now, but if I can have the liberty, I may have 2 more questions to come back before the end. I would appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Barnes. Senator Morrison, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, President, Angel, Mayors. I just want to know what the state of the sports facilities, recreation conditions are within these respective villages. Do you have some brief on that?
I'm sure that each of the mayors can probably better state to you the conditions of their facilities, but I know for a fact that probably within the past year, at least for one facility in each of those villages, that is much better now than it was a year ago because of the $500,000 that we were able to obtain from the compact impact, and they used it right to improve those facilities.
Right.
But for those facilities, I can assure you that they are in a better condition.
Okay.
And then we have another $500,000 from compact impact that is called the phase 2 that the mayors are anxiously awaiting for, to be able to work on another basketball court or another baseball field, to be able to use those funds. So we are active. Whatever facilities are under the purview and jurisdiction of the mayors, they're taking those funds and turning it right around and putting it into those facilities.
That's great to hear. So
Yeah. And the money that hopefully would come from the gaming tax, while we still await that, those funds also would go a long ways towards helping with those.
is there any, has there been any discussions yet with DOA of setting these accounts up for
No,
the
we have
purpose?
not.
Okay. I think maybe we could encourage that we start moving along that line and see, and I know the mayors may want to look at their respective plans for their villages and courts and stuff like that, but I know that funds available and ready to be used for that purpose. Do mayors, how many mayors, or is there a way we could get data on how many youth are running youth programs in their respective villages? Or?
We can get that for you, Senator. But I can probably say that all of them are running youth programs.
Okay, that's good to hear, because we this morning with the chair this morning, we were discussing some opportunities with DPR that could work to give them flexibility to partner with the mayors as well with another funding source that we're working on. But I just want to see if that those are ongoing, they can fully be embraced with the partnership with DPR. But that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Blunt, can you tell me, can you break down the cost in personnel between the mayors and the staff in terms of the impact of the Hay study in the next fiscal year for the mayors and the vice mayors and the staff?
As far as
What's the additional cost in personnel for those two categories in the upcoming fiscal year?
I believe, I know we were discussing it, but I believe it's close to $450,000
For
to cover for the new Hay study.
for the staff.
Right.
How about the mayors?
Now, theirs has actually increased tremendously from that, and if we add that up, I know that it's going to go up another $200,000. Remember, their salary has almost doubled, and
Okay.
the Hay study for many of our unclassified maintenance people and office personnel in the villages, the Hay study actually, although they got an increase, was a very slight increase, and this is something that we're looking at, because some of our employees, our municipal clerks actually, and our administrative assistants, although we've slotted them for like a J5 in their old slotting, we were under the impression that if they were slotted in the Hay study, that they would, at whatever slot they got at higher, that they would also go to a step 5. But that was not the case. Though they were step 5 in the old system, when they went into the Hay study, although they got a higher pay grade, they went back to a slot 1, starting all over in the Hay. So that's something that I know that we're actively looking at, to either appeal or to find some reasoning as to why is it that we have an employee or employees that we've already increased and have reached this level of, let's say, step 5, and all of a sudden when the Hay study came along, they're all the way back again to step 1 at a higher, yeah.
But didn't those employees automatically go to the Department of Administration and appeal their case, because they said that that's what the process was?
That's what we're actually, Senator, we're working on putting this whole thing together.
Yeah.
Because remember, our employees are unclassified, so there's a different system for the unclassified employees.
I thought they said that there was a system for that too, so
Yeah.
I check.
Yes.
I double check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There's also a request for prior year obligations. Do you have a list of your prior year obligations?
We do. Yes.
Can we get that?
Yes.
Okay. And would that be for fiscal year FY 2013?
Yes.
Why? Go ahead.
I wish I could say that we don't have any prior obligations, but some of the villages, the mayors, although we have asked that they turn in everything before the end of the fiscal year, this last fiscal year when we had a changeover of mayors in some of the villages, those villages that had changeovers, when their AAs left and the mayors left, well, the files were all in disarray. And so when the new AAs came in, they didn't know what to do with what they were seeing on their desks, so they sat on these things until we had vendors actually coming into our office asking us, where's their payment? So we had to go back to these villages and ask them, where are these invoices that these vendors are claiming either they gave you services or they did, you purchased things from them and they're not been paid. And we have to, aside from working with what we have currently, also stop and work back and look at these old invoices that we're getting. So that's happened in some of the, about 5 villages, Senator.
Do you have an estimate of what that number is?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Tamuning Tuman is the village with the highest encumbrance of prior year obligations.
All right. What are your plans to avoid that from happening?
Senator?
What are your plans to avoid that from happening in the future? I mean, could you put together a SWAT team out of the Mayor's Council?
I'm glad you brought that up. I have actually in my office only two ladies. They're both clerk typists, and they don't do clerk typist work. They actually do accounting technician work. And I just, my heart goes out to those two ladies that work day in and day out to try to be able to, they're divided up 9 villages each. And the one has 10 villages, the other one has 9. And the other one that has 9 has the utility accounting to make her a 10 village thing. But whenever they have all these things come in, and mayors have complained to me, and it actually has come to a head these past 2 months because many of them have been backlogged where they don't get their purchase orders on time, and they're not seeing the production of these 2 ladies. But much of the work is trying to dig out all these old invoices from vendors that have not been paid. And I'm not saying that the 2 girls can't do the work, but it's just come to a point where I believe that even in my office, I probably need an additional personnel to be able to handle all these requisitions that are coming in, because we handle our own procurement. And so we try to get it turned around as fast as we can, but we're finding a lot of backlog because a lot of mayors, they all come in at the same time for their requests for purchase orders. And so they try to put it out as fast as they can. But the area where these backlogs are coming from the villages, the President and I have actually talked to these mayors to be able to work with their AAs to dedicate some time to, when they get an invoice, work on it and turn it into our office so that we can work on it and turn it into DOA for payment. Because unless we get it, DOA will never get it for payment. And we don't, and once we issue out a purchase order to a village, we really don't know whether they're using that purchase order or there's been any activity on that purchase order unless we get those invoices. And for us, even though we have the purchase order, if we don't get the invoice, we're going to assume that there's still nothing happening on that purchase order. Lo and behold, when the end of the fiscal year comes and we get the purchase order back, not also used, but in many cases over the purchase order amount. And so that's where we get into even a more difficult time in trying to figure out these things out. But how do we police it? We just mention at every meeting that we have, every regular meeting every month, we tell our mayors, please, when you get your invoices, when you get your purchase orders, tell your ladies or whoever works on them to be able to turn them in on a timely basis.
Can we just make a small suggestion?
Sure.
That when you issue the purchase order, you know who it goes to, you know which business it goes to. Couldn't you make it a requirement in that purchase order of accepting it that the business sends a copy of all charges against that purchase order to the Mayor's Council as well?
We have done that, Senator, but DOA will not accept copies of...
No, I understand, but at least you know whether they use it or not.
Yes.
So you can then add, you know what to ask for.
Right.
You know what to ask the mayors for. That's
Okay.
just a suggestion.
Okay.
That's a possibility.
We have that. We have a letter.
Yeah. You're requesting $50,000 for accounting services for Liberation Day activities and the other non-appropriated funds. Isn't the Liberation Day a separate activity outside of the Mayor's Council, outside of the government of Guam?
Yeah,
basically?
actually, Senator, this was a request we had in 2 fiscal years ago, where the public auditor had recommended that we get the services of an accounting technician or accounting tech to assist the two ladies that we have in our office to set up a process as far as how to handle invoices that are coming in from the different villages, not necessarily to audit liberation services or the non-appropriated funds, because that's happening anyway. We're not using any funds to do that. You're right, the liberation, we've outsourced that to a nonprofit organization, the Guam Liberation Historical Society, and they do their own auditing for the liberation. The non-appropriated funds is an annual audit that's done by OPA. So we're not using any funding for that out of our. This initial fund was to try to contract somebody to come into our office just for a one-time basis to be able to set up something within our office so that our girls would have a policy to follow and that we can send that out to the mayors of the different villages to be able to follow as a.
But couldn't you use the proceeds then from that nonprofit to set up that system for you?
Within MCOG?
Within the nonprofit.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
you won't need the 50,000.
Yeah, this one was just for the first initial one where we had asked the recommendation of the public auditors to try to get somebody to come in. This one when she first started doing the audits for us.
Right, so then the request of the public auditor, if I may, Mr. Chair, is not to manage these accounts, because now you're just saying that the liberation festivities is separate and apart now
Right.
from the MCOG, right?
That's correct.
So, so you opened a nonprofit organization
That's correct.
for
yes,
the liberation
right,
facility,
right.
and those members, are they the mayors and their staff?
Some are
or-
members, some are private from the community.
Okay,
Yes.
so you do have a president and all that, and
That's correct.
they do have, so that would be excluded. So then the question I'm going to ask is,
Do we need the $50,000?
is it needed for that then?
That we can live without.
Without it.
Without. Sorry.
Well, if you want to start asking us what we're going to, well, we can.
The reason why
It's
I'm going
just
to
that,
ask
like I
is
said, the two
because-
girls and the recommendation, we take the recommendation of the auditor close to heart. And one of our recommendations was to get somebody to be able to set up a system within our office to be able to give it out to the
Manage.
different mayors so that they can follow this system. Because when she first started auditing, every mayor had their own system. And so this was
So we're trying
her
to put
recommendation. right.
uniformity into this.
That's correct. And it's just to get, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to put an accounting, we can contract it out to one of the auditing companies on Guam and make a system for us.
So on the liberation festivities, Angel, the funding that comes out of that, I know it's proportionate. Some goes to the First Ladies program, and then the rest goes to the mayors. Am I right?
It goes to the Mayor's Council of Guam, and the mayors decide for themselves how they're going to
And
use
that's
those
distributed
funds.
based on that.
Yes.
Has the breakdown of those allocation been proportionate to each of the village, the amounts given out? How much was the
Yes,
last?
they actually are proportionate, because if they aren't, I'm
No,
going
I know
to
that
have a
we're
war on my
probably
hands.
screaming. So what was the average for last year's festivities?
I believe last year was 5,000.
5,000?
Yes, per village, yeah.
Okay.
5,000 per village, but your total take on the Liberation Day activity was over $1 million?
Minus expenses, Senator. There's all kinds of costs with liberation that comes into that. We have to pay for the entertainment. We have to pay for the grounds up at ground maintenance up at Tizen. So it comes down to it. We gave, I believe, when they had the over 100,000 just last year. Over 100,000 for the Regalo Foundation, and close to 100,000 for the Mayor's Council of Guam. But all the funds that come in, actually, because liberation, there's no government appropriation, so every money spent on liberation actually comes from the fees that we collect. And we did spend quite a bit of money when we moved to Tizen, as far as putting down the asphalt, the pavements, putting in the Cascal, the street lights, power utilities alone at TGen cost us a lot of money, no less than $50,000 every year that we operate up there. So, like I said, our last audit on the Liberation, the FY12, I'm sure you got a copy of it. That's the first year out of the 69 years that we were able to get a clean opinion on the expenses and on the audit of Liberation. And then we went over to the Historical Society.
So now it's not with the nonprofit group for 20...
Since last year, it's been with the Historical Society.
Right,
Yes.
2013 and 2014.
That's correct. Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just want to ask regarding the animal control program. Is that still within your purview?
It has not been in our purview.
It's not in your purview.
No.
Is it?
It is something I know Mayor Matanani is here. It's something that he chairs as far as the stray animal roundup is concerned. It's a very difficult issue to really pin down. We're trying to work with not just game, but also with the Department of Agriculture to be able to come out with a program that's actually going to work. And they meet every Friday. Mayor Matanani's group meets every Friday and trying to come up with a program that where we put funds in that we can actually get some benefit out of it.
So
But it's not. We have not taken over the animal control program, and we will not until we have all our ducks in order.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
No,
But,
before
but you're still meeting in efforts to try and work that out.
Yes, and even though it's not under our control, every day we still pick up dead animals.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the request from the two villages of Asan and Barragata was for an additional recreational leader one, which has a base salary of $19,040, and with the total benefits on that full-time would be a grand total each for $32,528. The committee did receive a breakdown from the Mayor Barragata on what those programs are, and she lists a plethora of activities that are happening. And I just want to ask, the ones who have the rec leaders all have gyms in their
That's
villages,
correct.
am I saying
That's
that?
correct.
So the justification for the rec leaders on both, though I do want them to have it,
It's
was that-
because right now they are operating programs similar to those that have gyms, and they don't want to put an end to it. So what's happening is that they're using their maintenance personnel. Instead of making them work 80 hours on just maintenance work, they take hours out of their time and assigning them to do the nighttime work, to open, to run the programs that they do have in the evenings. So Barragata has programs in the evening, and Asan Medina does as well. In Arahan, as you know, just opened up a new community center, and she's also asking us to see whether or not, because she now has technically a community center and a gym, to be able to be given the personnel to run those things, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I just wanted to verify, Mrs. Sablon, that as you mentioned, there are many different proposals out there to provide the mayor with additional money for heavy equipment, and you have a request for 1.5 in your budget. And just to make sure I heard you right, that if any of these funding sources other than, before we get to the budget should come to bear, then the 1.5 would not
Then
be
we're willing
required.
to share that with others.
Okay, all right, thank you. The 400,000 from the recycling fund, is there a work plan in place, and has that money been transferred to the mayors?
That money has been transferred to the mayors, and we are working on the same work plan we had when we had the initial $250,000.
Okay, all right. Let's see. No.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
may, also, the $664,000 for lump sum payments, that's not needed, am I?
No, actually, you made a separate appropriation for that amount. It's been passed and signed into law, and actually, DOA has actually taken that money already.
Okay. Making sure.
Okay. I have no further questions.
No further questions.
I'd like to go ahead and give the opportunity then for the mayors to present any final comments or any final thoughts on the budget request.
Good afternoon, Chairman Pangelinan and Tina Barnes and Morrison. Anyway, all these things that it looks that the figures went up, when you look at the inflation, we're not getting anything more than what we normally have to spend. Look at that carefully, because when you say $12 million versus 8, look, that's pretty high, right? But really, if you look at the inflation that robbed us, that $12 million is not equivalent to the $8 million, maybe less than $8 million. So that part, you have to remember that. So please help us operate this office for the community. Whatever you give us is only good for the community. So that's what I'd like to ask you for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Any other mayors may wish to come forward? Yes, yes.
You know, I'd like to bring up the position of the executive director. You know, the mayors and the vice mayors would like to actually have the authority to decide on his salary. You know, because he actually works for the council, and we have a problem with this salary right now. So I'd like for an amendment of the law to actually let the mayors and the vice mayor decide on his salary. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor Cruz? does he have-
One more item, Senator.
Yes, sir.
I feel sorry for my staff. Most of my staff get only 1 penny an hour and 8 cents due to what Mr. Chairman mentioned. Can you look into that and get them a fair share of the pay raise that they hope they could get?
We did. You know, we passed the bill.
They passed a bill now
We
too.
passed a bill that required the governor to report to the legislature what the impact is on the Hay study and how it would affect the employees. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed the bill, and we could not get any Republican support to override that bill. And so we could not then affect the implementation process. This is what we wanted to find out before the Hay study was implemented to avoid this kind of issue. And unfortunately, we were not able to do that because the governor decided to veto the bill, and no Republican senator would support the override of telling the employees first before we implement, so that we avoid having to package these things and appeal them to the Department of Administration, that we figure out all this before we implement it, make the changes before we implement, so that we don't end up with that kind of situation. We don't end up employees getting an increase in their pay grade, but a decrease in their step, because it was never intended to be that way. But unfortunately, the governor said, don't worry, just pass the plan, and I got the plan, and this is the plan. So, but we will continue to work with trying to find some kind of fix through the appropriation process, but it's not an appropriation problem. It's not a legislative problem. It's an administrative problem, in that they have taken the Hay study and the job classification and put people in there. You know, by statute, that is something that we couldn't affect prior to the implementation. We could have affected prior to the implementation, but really we can't post-implementation.
I was a poor man, Senator, very, very poor. Not during World War II, before the war. And my heart cries for them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. Can we also, we had requested the full impact of the Hay study for FY15. Can you also give us FY14 when you give us that now? Yes. Sure. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, I know the mayor's got a lot of services or programs that are are available to their constituents. Do the mayors have websites or are working on any websites? Do each and any mayors have websites?
The council itself has a website, and there's a link to each of the mayor's offices.
Is there any other services to improve services to your constituents that we can put further online?
I'm sure that we can work on that. PDN has been offering a service to the mayors on a weekly basis where they put in all the information they want to, and the PDN will publish it for them. That's still ongoing. I think we've worked with Morales Variety for the same thing. We used to have a radio program with K57, but unfortunately it's either Mayor Hoffman or myself or Mayor Melissa that would host it, because the other mayors were thought that they would have to press all kinds of buttons to do the radio program. But it's something that we probably want to get back on and be able to provide more information to the public. But each mayor has their own different way of connecting with their people and their constituents. I know that some of them have their own newsletters. Agani Heights is one of them that publishes a newsletter. Shalampago is another one that does that. So in that sense, there are. But as far as trying to get each village to have their own website, it maybe it's something that we probably can discuss during our meetings.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is something, actually, you did a few budget bills ago, and actually we always bring this up, but I think when you did the street lights, you allowed us to transfer street lights from area to area, and you actually appropriated some money. Unfortunately, all the money ended up being used up by Telefovo, because, and so when we last met with DPW on the street light issue, I know there's several bills before this legislature about street lights, and that's something that's near and dear to the mayor's heart, because we get those calls all the time. And, we've asked questions of DPW, we've asked questions of GPA, and it's a funding issue on that, and the freedoms that we need to do that. We understand from DPW there may be a surplus of money now for them to actually start doing new installations and everything, but as you proceed, we would like, your support in that. Again, you were very instrumental in doing that. I think that was your amendment at the time. And if we can maybe, as we do the money, to maybe even break it down further where it is divided into 19 and not just, all absorbed. So maybe at least 3 or 4 lights in each of the districts can be moved to those critical areas. So as you kind of review, and it touches on that, and we appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Okay. Just one more thing, Mr. Speaker. This the district improvement fund that was legislation many moons ago. Mm-hmm. We've actually tried to get at the bottom of that and find out what has come of it, or where it went, or nothing. Yeah, I know Mayor Gogui has been trying to find out, what really happened to the district improvement fund, where they appropriated. It's supposed to be appropriations to the villages, each of the 19 villages, on an annual basis.
Based upon the real estate tax on the
real
villages.
estate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So either it be repealed, I guess, or
we will look into that also.
Definitely.
During this process. Okay.
Thank you.
There being no further testimony, we will. This is the first hearing of the FY 2015 budget request of the administration. We will continue these hearings and announce the upcoming departments and agencies that will come before this committee. So we will just recess this hearing and we will then make the public announcements for the next meeting of this committee. Thank you very much, and Sidus Masis, gentlemen.